Nicole, glad to have you here
Thank you
today.
so much.
We have been really surprised, pleasantly surprised to see how well MaxxCole Salon and Spa has done, and I appreciate the opportunity today. How did you come about the idea and, taking it from, as I say, napkin or shower
Yes.
to concept and execution?
Well, my business, I was a client of my business for 14 years. And my childhood dream was to be in that business. I wanted to be a cosmetologist. I wanted to serve women in that way, bringing beauty inside and outside. And I loved it. But my educational path didn't take me that way. I ended up in the financial services industry, long career in leadership. But when you have a childhood dream, it always stays close to your heart. And so I was a client of this salon for 14 years, and I became friends with the owner, and I told her how much I loved it, and I was jealous that she could do what I wanted to do. And so over the course of 14 years, I quietly supported that business. The owner, she was a single mom with 2 daughters. I saw her struggling in entrepreneurship, and so I would have client events there. I would bring my clients there. I would give referrals. I just tried to support the business, which then in turn she let me stay close to it, which I loved. So it was a mutual beneficial situation. I was in the financial planning industry, so I ended up doing the financial planning for the business. And I was able to get to know the team better and all those kinds of things. So I ended up very close to the people in this business. So fast forward to January of 2020.
Right.
We know what happened then, right?
Right. Yes.
So I was at the salon getting what I didn't know would be my last hair appointment because they ended up closing. And the owner said to me, she said, "Nicole, I need to talk to you about something. Do you have a minute?" Before I left, I said, "Sure." So we sat down, and she explained to me that her journey in her life was changing. She had an aging mother. Her daughters needed her more. The business was starting to struggle because of the pandemic. It was just too much. So she confided in me and told me that she wanted to move on. However, in that environment, there were no potential buyers. It was very difficult. Right. And she had shared with me that she would probably have to close the business entirely, and felt horribly for these women that had built their businesses there, but there was really nothing that can be done. In the second breath, she said, but at the same time, she said, I want you to know that no one's been as supportive as you have to my business in the last 14 years. And I was really taken aback by that because I just enjoyed it because it was something
that was your passion.
That was my passion.
Right.
So she said, and it's been about a year, and I've been trying to think of how I can thank you. And I said, "No thanks needed." She said, "No, but I wanted to tell you that I thought that I could give you your dream. And I want to see if you have interest in that, and I will make it as feasible as possible for you to have this business. You're the perfect person for it." And I was just completely taken aback. And to make a long story short, we decided to look at buying this business. And at the end of the day, the gift she gave me was we did buy the commercial property that the business was in, but the salon and spa just came with it. Yeah. And luckily, we were able to save everyone's career there. And that was the best gift that came out of all of it. Once we realized it wasn't just my childhood dream anymore, it was saving careers, it was keeping this business alive in the community and keeping to serve the community. The tone changed, and we had to do what we could to save it. So
wonderful.
So yeah,
you when you often look at like a transition of a business, in the typical sense, we always say, well, if the seller kind of has confidence in the buyer. So let's say it's an employee or it's an associate and they've got a long-term relationship.
Yes.
You can do a seller's agreement, which maybe the owner would say, look, I'll loan you a portion of the money.
Yes.
So that the bank loan is not, but see, you've got the best.
Yes.
You've got the best of both worlds. So you were able to achieve your dream.
Yes.
You were able to save a business. I'm
Yes.
sure she sees a legacy
Yes.
being left.
Yes.
And not only is the economic development component important, but you were also, as I assume the way you expressed it here today, you were able to save jobs.
Yes.
And so it couldn't be any better
Yeah.
than that. So obviously, I believe it was in 2021, with all of that going on,
Yes.
you won the Woman of the Year
I did.
award. So we were very,
Aw.
kudos and everyone,
Thank you.
kudos and congratulations
Thank you.
on that. So let me ask you, what did, if you step back and look at this, what were the challenges? What did you see as, say, the two greatest challenges?
Sure. The number one challenge that I did not expect at all, because remember, I was a client of this business for 14 years. I knew that team, but I knew them as a client. I didn't know them as a leader. And leading up to me purchasing that business, what I did know what was going on behind the scenes was the former owner, she was struggling. The team was struggling. Because the owner was struggling with some personal issues, she couldn't appreciate the team like they needed. She couldn't grow the business. So when I inherited this business, what I found was a broken team was my first challenge. I thought I was going to head in. I wrote a business plan. We're going straight for marketing. We're going to build this. But then, no, that had to be put on the back burner because that team that I inherited were my number one priority. And I told them, I took them all to dinner when I bought the business. And the first thing I said to them was, my role here is to protect you. It's to protect your career and it's to protect your heart. And that is my number one priority. And so very quickly did I then go to them individually and let them tell me confidentially what they were thinking and feeling. Mm-hmm. And so from that moment, I did things to help morale as a group, but I also did things to help people individually. I now have 11 people on my team. And although they have the common threads of integrity and creativity and the passion for what they do, they're all still individuals.
Correct.
And they react differently to different things. And so I've spent a lot of time getting to know them and doing customized special things to appreciate them. And so that was the challenge that I didn't expect. But here we are, and it took about 1.5 years. It took about 18 months to gain that trust, to build that open communication, for them to realize how good they really are, to build their confidence. So it took 18 months. And but I don't look at that as a setback. That was an investment because now I have, 4 years later, I have this strong, confident, wonderful team. And I think if I didn't stop to do that then, we wouldn't be where we are now.
Is it fair to say when you are in the business planning or business development mode that your talent pool is key to whether you're eventually going to be successful or not? Or do you have the requisite talent to match where you're going from a business strategy perspective?
Yes, and I think it is so important for that talent because specifically in the business that I'm in, 99%, probably even a little bit more of our clients are women. And I needed a strong, balanced team to handle what comes into the salon. And when I say what comes into the salon, it's all of the other things besides hair, nails, and skin. It's the stories, it's the venting, it's, it all comes out in the salon chair. So I think that having the right talent and getting them where they need to be is crucial. It's crucial.
So in the personal beauty service
Yes.
industry, do you also go out and get a certificate in psychiatry and
You
psychology?
should. We always say that. We have some shirts that say therapist instead of
therapist. Yeah,
therapist
right,
instead of therapist.
Right.
But yes, and that was another dimension that I wasn't ready for as well, was the emotional piece to the business that I purchased. We came out of the pandemic. Life was more difficult than it had been before. Mostly my market coming into MaxxCole are women between the ages of 40 and 65. These are typically working women working inside the home, outside the home, certainly with families, entrepreneurs. I have an exceptional number of female business owners that come to MaxxCole. And we have seen everything from domestic violence to sickness to taking care of aging parents to, I could go on, because these women, we built a space, and this was what I wanted to do. I wanted to build a space where women could come and feel comfort and safety and feel special and heard. And we built that. So now they come and they know that, but it all comes out there. So that was something else was that emotional piece, the consultation piece to this business.
When you look at going from the transition and from the former owner, obviously not the ideal time to purchase, but you did.
Yeah.
And then transitioning post-COVID.
Yes.
What were some of your specific marketing and PR strategies to try to, bridge the gap, so to speak?
So, first and foremost, we were focused on safety and cleanliness because of the pandemic. The business that I own and the people that work there are in very close contact with the client. And so keeping people healthy was our very first priority. Talk about unexpected things. We had unexpected expenses because of having to do that. We had to ramp up our cleaning and our sanitation, and we have kept those up since then. So it wasn't a bad thing. We bought hospital-grade air cleaners and UV lights to be run every night that sanitized every inch of that salon and skin spa. We had to implement mask wearing policies. Not everybody was happy with that. But when I would explain to people, we're just trying to keep our doors open. Because when my team got sick, and each one of us did have COVID one time, it just would, over the course of 2 years, we did. But when a person had to stay home for that 14 days, that really upset, it upset the apple cart.
So with those added expenses,
yeah.
How did you then, from a cash flow and a management perspective, can you tell the audience kind of what you did? Because again, you had unexpected expenses. Obviously, cash flow during that time is always king. So talk a little bit about how you maneuvered through that.
Well, when I took the business over, one thing that hadn't been done for a long time was really a reevaluation of all the expenses of the business, from payroll to janitorial to the products that we use, all those. So I did a very deep analysis of the expenses early on and was able to make changes, whether it was with the business insurance, insuring the business, insuring the equipment, just payroll was a big one. I changed to a local payroll company here, saved us a tremendous amount of money. I I looked at our merchant services, which is the credit card fees, was able to get that down significantly, $300 to $400 a month. And for a small business owner, that extra $5,000 is key.
Significant.
So luckily, I didn't know necessarily at that moment I'd have these extra expenses, but luckily I had done that analysis, which freed up cash. And then we just used that cash to do what was best for the business. Partitions between the pedicure chairs, things like that. And so when you talk about coming out of the pandemic and a PR strategy, again, it was a time where we had cancellations every day. People were getting sick. They couldn't make it. So my PR strategy right then and there was your safety and your health is our first priority. Here's what we've put in place to make sure you are comfortable coming, and making accommodations for people that might not have been able to come in. So that was the PR strategy then. Again, it was, that business plan that I first gave to Don Lodge really was put on the back burner, because that was straightforward marketing, PR, sales, things like that. But once I got in it and we had the pandemic, I definitely had to pivot, and it was about keeping people safe, and doing our best. But I will say, through that time, I did watch some businesses take their foot off the gas pedal. They were like, this is the time to coast. I need a break. We actually didn't do that. We kept our foot on the gas pedal the entire time through through the end of the pandemic. I think that was another thing that served us very well. We never stopped. We just took every challenge. We worked as a team, which I know sounds cliche, but we did. I don't really make many decisions there without their input. So it's really a transparent team environment. So, we hit all these challenges head on. What are we going to do? Chelsea's off for 14 days. What are we, all these kinds of things. And now we just had a big challenge unexpectedly come from our bank. And when I was upset, here I am, I'm the leader. I get the news, I'm upset. I'm supposed to be strong and whatnot. My team looked at me and said, Nicole, we got you. We got this. Don't worry about it. And I think coaching them through those challenges and us working as a team, now I truly feel like there's nothing that could break us.
Good.
So
if you had the magic wand, and it was, if I had to do it over again, what would I have done differently? What would be the one thing that might say, hindsight being 20/20,
Sure.
What would I have done differently?
The first thing that comes to mind, and I should have known better, but sometimes we don't think about that, or we let our emotions. Yes,
we're all very good when we don't want to come to some type of reality, right? But
as I had said, we had bought a large commercial property. My salon and skin spa is in a 5,000 square foot old farmhouse in Robinson Township. Just like any house, there's always something that needs to be done. But this was an old house. And what I didn't do was I didn't get an independent inspection of the property. I took the word of the former owner, which at that time, I'd known her for a very long time. And I'm not saying it turned out negatively, so the relationship or anything.
If I may just interject, you didn't get a third-party appraisal.
I didn't get a third-party appraisal, which then uncovered a tremendous amount of repairs and expenses that were needed to be made. So I would, if I had to go back, the first thing I would do is get that property looked at, appraised independently. That was the number one thing. That was the number one thing.
And I'm so glad you bring that up. Because so many people, when we're in similar business situations, and they come and they say, well, that's an added expense. And I said, well, yes, it is an added expense, but it's an expense that you need to be comfortable with.
Yes.
Also, if you're trying to get a loan,
yes,
you better believe you're going to get a third-party appraiser because the bank will expect you
Yes.
to. Now, sometimes the bank will include the fee
Yes.
in the loan.
Yes.
But again, to your point, I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah.
Because many of the entrepreneurs say, oh, that's an expense I don't want. No.
Exactly.
Because what happens if you find something structurally? Well, that you've already bought the building.
Exactly.
Or you can go back and say, hey, either you fix it
Yes.
and I'll negotiate the price.
Yes.
Or if you want
Right.
me to fix it, then you're gonna come down.
Yes.
Exactly, so.
And I was caught up in that moment. It went from very straightforward to very emotional, because once I knew that team was going to lose their jobs, once I knew that, I could realize a dream that I had had forever, it became very emotional and close to me. And she was a cosmetologist. She wasn't a general contractor. She was. I'm not saying she kept anything from me, but we didn't know she didn't know the furnaces needed replaced. Everything was like, it's fine. This building's great. It's perfect. And that was where I left it. And I shouldn't have done that. I do know better, and I know better now.
Well, so let me ask you.
Yeah.
So tell me tell me about your experience with our Small Business Development Center, please.
All of you here are truly near and dear to my heart. I will never forget my first phone call. I was referred to the Small Business Development Center by another entrepreneur friend of mine, and she said, you ought to give them a call. And I said, okay. And, my biggest fear at that time was really being rejected or laughed at even, because it was a time you shouldn't be buying businesses. That would be not very smart for what most people would think. But I made that initial call, and I was connected with Donald Lodge.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I went in with determination, and I said, this is what I want to do, and this is how I'm going to do it, and all those things. And there was no negativity. There was no question I couldn't do it. There was no comments about this is a bad time. He was completely open to having this conversation and hearing me out of why I did think it was a good time to do this and why I wanted to do it. So that initial phone call set a relationship between us that I will never, ever forget.
Okay.
And then as time went on, and I remember we were in the negotiating process, and we we did get a loan for the property, and then the salons everywhere, businesses closed. Well, the bank wouldn't give you a loan for a business that wasn't open. So that time, I was able, it bought us some time, really,
Right.
Even though we wanted to get it done,
Right.
but it bought us some time to do some strategic planning. So Dawn and I were able to really write a comprehensive business plan together and really map out when I did get the loan and the keys were in my hand.
So you were proactively prepared.
We were very proactive, and we used that
Good to
time
hear.
very well.
Good to hear.
Again, not taking our foot off the gas pedal.
Right.
We kept it on, and we kept going forward, because eventually I was going to get that loan, and eventually I was going to unlock the door with my own keys.
And eventually you became Woman Business of the Year.
I mean, that's just the cherry on top, really. And so Dawn and I had a wonderful relationship, and then that day came. That day came for the ribbon cutting of our brand new business. And you were all there.
Right.
You were all there with me, and you were there to support me, and you took pictures, and you gave me a hug, and it felt, I always say it's nice to be complimented, but when you are given accolades by people you respect, it feels so much differently, and I respect all of you.
So let me ask you, in closing.
Yes.
What would be your advice to any would-be entrepreneur, and also any entrepreneur that's thinking about growing? So let's start with, what's your advice to anybody who has that idea in the shower or on the napkin?
I've been there. I was that person.
What would your advice would be to the would-be entrepreneur?
Don't let it go. Don't let it go. Hold on to that. And reach out to resources like the Small Business Development Center, because you have the experience to walk us through that process. You're really not as alone as you think you are.
Good.
When you have that idea.
sure.
I feel that, I had also reached out to our personal financial planner. She was a big support system. There was a coach I used when I was in corporate. I called her and I said, what do you think about this? She said, Nicole, you're made for this. And so use your resources that you have to help you through this. But absolutely, the best call I made was to you, and I'm not. It really
Thank you.
was.
We
It really
appreciate
was.
that. As far as now that you've been in the business and obviously you're in a growth stage,
Yes.
what would be your advice to any entrepreneur who's trying to think through, am I ready to grow? How do I figure out I'm ready to grow? What would you tell them to do?
What I would do is I would survey your foundation. And what I mean by that is I had a building and I had a team. And if you have a brick and mortar space, is it conducive for clients? Does it work for your business? Is it aesthetically pleasing? All of those kinds of things, because if someone is coming in there, it has to be inviting, it has to be clean, it has to be all those kinds of things. Then if you have employees and you have a team, check their temperature, because they're going to make your business or break your business. So I would check those two things first. And then I would do some an in-depth look at your target marketing, and then build strategies to match those targets. Very specific strategies.
Would you advise any client and to any existing business to come to us
Oh
to
my
go
goodness.
through that due diligence process?
Absolutely. And I still do that. So I check in with Dawn. I always say, I'm giving you my report card. He's never asked for anything like that, but I want to show my appreciation. I remember when my parents sent me to college and they paid for it. The way I repaid them was by getting good grades and becoming something.
Sure.
And so I feel that way with you guys. You gave me so much, and the way I can repay you is showing you what you taught me, that I'm doing it.
You raise a very good point, and I think you and I were discussing before
Yeah.
we came on air,
Yeah.
that probably beginning next year,
Yes.
what we have found is, we work with clients are successful, but often,
Yes.
they get what they need,
Yes.
and then time goes by.
Yes.
And maybe we haven't done such a good job on following up, but using your example
Yeah.
in your relationship with Don,
Mhm.
beginning in January with the new year, all new clients, we're gonna follow up in 6
Yes.
months. We're gonna follow up at the end of the year.
Yes.
And we're gonna do that periodically, at least through the first 5 years of the business.
Yes.
Because what we have found typically, if you make it through the first 5 years,
Yes.
you tend to grow.
Yes.
So that again, we are your resource,
Absolutely.
So-
And you have things for web development, social media, Excel training. I mean, you have a myriad of different topics that a business owner needs to know. And I didn't realize all the things I needed to be good at, but you don't, because again, you have the resources like yourselves here. I would say to any business owner, any stage, shower, thinking of
That's right.
we'll call that the shower
stage.
shower stage,
The napkin stage. Yeah,
napkin stage, to over 5 years, we'll say.
Okay.
There is nothing wrong with getting support, asking for help, and not knowing everything. None of us know everything about everything, and it's okay.
Right.
It's okay to be vulnerable and say, well, I need some help in this area, first and foremost. Secondly, you have so many, like I said, so many areas to help someone. And there's nothing wrong with a second opinion. Sometimes we get so stuck in our ruts doing the same things over and over, and you're not getting results. It's like, what am I missing? Well, fresh eyes can tell you what you're missing. And that's another service you offer. And just, Rich, just being a business owner, it's hard. I've never worked this hard in my life. And I had, I was in a tough industry. I've never worked this hard in my life. I love every minute of it. But, and as old as I am and as much experience, I still like someone to tell me, you're doing a good job.
Well, it's all
There's
about.
nothing wrong with that.
Similar to you, I owned my own healthcare
Yes,
consulting
yes.
company. 28 years in
Yes.
corporate, getting a paycheck.
Yes.
A pretty good paycheck.
Yep.
But going and owning that business, and
Yes.
at the end of the day, realizing, hey,
Yes.
I have great employees, but they do go home.
And then-
At 10 o'clock, I'm the one that's responsible
Right.
for the cash flow.
Exactly.
And things like that. I never knew the Small Business Development Center even existed.
Mm.
And I tell all clients that work with me, had I known
Yes.
a resource like this was available, I would have taken months off of my due diligence
Yes.
process.
Yes.
Now, I was successful, but how much more successful could I have been, with the resources here?
Yes.
So I just want to say thank you.
Oh, thank
I
you.
want to say congratulations, and I hope that the next time we're going to be talking, you're opening your second location.
Oh,
Thank you very
thank
much.
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.